Hello everyone, my name is Saurabh Jain, and in this video we are going to take a look at GPT-3 and some hands-on examples. What is GPT-3? GPT in GPT-3 stands for Generative Pre-trained Text. It is a language model created by OpenAI. This API has consumed enough text, nearly a trillion words, that is able to make sense of text and output text in a way that appears human-like. Text here specifically means that GPT-3 does not use any intelligence. It simply knows how to predict the next word, which is called a token, in a sentence, a paragraph, or text block. It does this exceedingly well. How it works? GPT-3 works by taking a section of input data and predicting the next section of text that should follow directly after. When hearing this, people often compare it to autocorrect. The biggest difference between being creativity. When you use GPT-3, you supply your input and a few options, the most common of which is called temperature, the measure of how creative the outputs will be. Computers are not designed to be creative, so effectively this option gives GPT-3 the freedom to do questionable choices. How do I access it? If you visit the OpenAI website, there is a form that you need to fill up to gain the beta access to this API. The form will be reviewed by the GPT-3 team and you would be granted access to it. Product offerings. There are two types of API endpoints that you can access, namely completions and search. The headline product, a completion lets GPT-3 takes an input prompt and complete that to return a result. Search. GPT-3 is very competent at parsing natural language inputs, making it ideal for building search tools. Now, let us take a look at the playground. Before you start experimenting in the playground, I highly recommend you to read the documentation. Documentation can save you some hours of work when you are trying to do something on your own, and it will also give you some work around and suggest some best practices for your examples. So in the developer quick start, you will find sections that explain how you can use Python bindings and what are the community libraries that are available at large. The engines will give you idea about will give you details about the models that we have discussed in the previous section. In the example sections, you can take a look at some simple use cases where the prompts are created by the team and how you can tinker around and try to get output based on the same lines. Going live. Now, if you develop some application and if you go live without taking the team's permission, your access to the API would be revoked, right? So do read this section before you make your use case productive. The use case guidelines are updated from time to time and they may contain some changes that have been implemented and they might be useful for your use case. Safety best practices. As GPT-3 has been trained on internet data, it may return some unexpected data. So I highly recommend that you take a look at the 10 recommendations provided by their team. If you go under your profile settings, you'd be presented with several options. One of them is usage. The usage page will show you how many tokens you have consumed so far. If you are on a free trial usage plan, you are given $18. As you can see that I have consumed about $2.09 so far. And the free trial usage plan comes with a expiry date. So you get access for 4 to 5 months. And my plan expires on September 1st. So I can choose to update this plan by contacting the team, and these are the price tokens for the respective models. Once you get the access to the API, you'll be able to log into this playground, and here you can play around with your input text and experiment with the kind of output that you want. Okay. Let's take a look at the different properties that we can set. Engine. OpenAI currently offers 4 models: ADA, Babbage, Curie, Da Vinci. All of these have been named after scientists. Each of these models has a different size. The flagship model is Da Vinci, representing the 175 billion parameters. Model size directly corresponds to how fast the API calls are handled. So for time sensitive requests, Da Vinci will likely be slow and ADA would be faster. When you are just starting out, it is recommended that you play around with ADA to get a feel of how the playground would work. Once you are confident, then you can use a powerful model like Da Vinci or Curie to get some powerful outputs. Next parameter is response length. You can set how many number of tokens do you want the GPT-3 API to return. Temperature. The temperature setting controls the randomness of the generated text. A value of 0 makes the engine deterministic, which means that it will always generate the same output for a given input text. A value of 1 makes the engine take the most risk and use a lot of creativity. Top P. The top P parameter that appears below the temperature also has some control over the randomness of the input. The frequency penalty and presence penalty sliders allow you to control the level of repetition GPT-3 is allowed in its responses. The difference between these two options is subtle, but you can think of frequency penalty as a way to prevent word repetitions and presence penalty as a way to prevent topic repetitions. Best of option can be used to have GPT-3 generate multiple response to a query. Be careful when you select this prompt because at the server side several responses would be generated, and out of this one of the best response would be returned to you. Stop sequences. This option allows you to define one or more sequences that when generated forces GPT-3 to stop. This can be, for example, a space or a tab. Inject text and start text. These are the fields where you can enter when the prompt from the user starts, and the restart text is when the GPT-3 prompt would start. Show probabilities is a debugging option that allows you to see why certain tokens were generated. There's also content filter. As this was trained on publicly available dataset, certain responses may be abusive or may be sensitive to certain audience. You can make sure that when you are playing around with GPT-3, these options are enabled to get a meaningful prompt from GPT-3 API. Let us now take a look at some examples. We'll take a look at summarize for a second grader. So what this does is you have to give it some complex text and it will simplify for a even a second grader can understand that text. So these are some of the preset tokens, or sorry, preset settings that have been done for this particular task and also for this text. And this was the sample response that is generated. Things. Okay, if I open this in the playground, okay, so my second grader asked me what this passage means and I have given some text over here. Okay, I rephrased it for him in plain language he can understand. So this is actually the format, those stop sequences. Sorry, if you take a look at this part, stop sequences. So it has given 3 double quotes in this part, and after this it would generate the um, summary for a second grader. So I'll click on submit. Okay, so this is the text that is returned by the API, right? And let's make it more creative and increase the temperature to 70. Okay, now let's see what happens. Right, so this is basically the creativity of GPT-3. So if you play around, then um, different outputs would be generated. We can select any of these examples listed on this page for our use case, or we can train the GPT-3 API from scratch. Okay, the examples are pretty straightforward. Okay, we'll take a look at let's say the chat option. Okay, so if you want to have an open-ended conversation with an AI assistant, you would use this particular example. So if you given this particular prompt with these settings, the expected output or the response would be something of this sort, right? Additionally, GPT-3 API gives you some Python code which you can run on your local machine. But before you can do that, you need to install this Python package OpenAPI and also provide the OpenAI API key to your script. The API key can be found from your settings page over here. Okay, so let us open this in the playground. Okay, so these are all the default inputs, and let's say I want to ask what is burnout. Okay, so GPT-3 act like my therapist and tell me the answer. Burnout is a mental and physical exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. That's acceptable. Okay, what are the causes of it? Depression, anxiety, job or life dissatisfaction, feelings of guilt or hopelessness are some external causes of burnout. Inside your body, the immune system being weakened will cause you to have more colds and other diseases, which also contributes to the cause of burnout. This is pretty accurate, and I mean, the output seems as if some human is talking behind the scenes, right? The output is so real. So this is how we can use the examples from this tab. But if we were to use if we were to program something from scratch, how we would do it? Okay, so let's say we are going to use the default settings as of now. Now if I create a question answer system of this sort, who is Elon Musk, right? Answer would be Elon Musk is the founder of Tesla and a Dogecoin enthusiast. Right? This is the kind of output that I want GPT-3 to give. Now, I would also give the start text for the GPT-3. Now, if I'll leave these parameters as it is, and we'll take a look at stop sequences, inject start text, and restart text. So, stop sequences basically tells the GPT-3 API when it should stop generating text. So that would happen when it sees enter. I'll press tab, so this gets added to the list. Next would be the text question. I'll press tab, this gets added, and the next would be answer. I'll press tab and this gets added. Okay, now start text. So when should GPT-3 API fill in for the prompt that you have provided? So here it would be enter followed by answer. This means this answer would appear on the next line. You see this here, right? So answer. Now when should GPT-3 restart again? I mean, what should be the next input for it? It would be on the next line followed by this question and a colon. Sorry, I forgot to give this colon, right? So you can try to add a space over here or not. I mean, that depends on you, right? So let's say who is the who is Naval Ravikant. Let's see what GPT-3 does now. Naval Ravikant is an angel investor and co-founder of AngelList, right? I know this answer is correct, but if you doubt, you can just search for AngelList and Naval Ravikant's name would pop up. Who created Ethereum? GRUM. Okay, I'll click on submit. Answer is Vitalik Buterin. I know this answer is correct, but just for the verification purpose, we'll take a look at. right writer, yeah, one of the co-founders of Ethereum. Now we'll take a look at another example. Let's say I want to write a example which would summarize some complex topic for me. These applications are also called as explain like I'm 5 or summarize for a second grader, right? So I'll take some text from this website, and the topic is string theory. We'll give some sample output, and then we'll ask GPT-3 to write explain like I'm 5 version of black hole. Okay, and that is taken from NASA's website. Okay, so let's get started. Text. So I've already taken the text in my notepad, and I would copy it. Okay, and the explain like I'm 5 version of this text is something like this. Okay, now the other example would be for black hole, and this is the text. Okay, I want GPT-3 to generate the explain like I'm 5 version for it. Now how do I tell GPT-3 that the text is starting from here and it should return its response which starts from here? Okay, so first of all, I would like to increase the length from 64 to, let's say, 200. Okay, I'll set rest of these things with default. Okay, and the stop sequences are something which would tell GPT-3 to stop generating output. Okay, so one of them would be enter. I'll press tab. Next would be text, which will take our input text. The third one would be explain like I'm 5. Okay, so this is added. Inject start text. So when should GPT-3 start giving us its response? It should be when it encounters, sorry, it should be after this text, enter, followed by el I5, explain like I'm 5, followed by a colon. This is where the output of GPT-3 would be shown. Restart text. When should GPT-3 start looking for a new text? It should be after enter, followed by text, followed by colon. Okay, so yeah, this looks good, and I'll press submit. Yeah, black holes are generally thought to be the end result of an object that has collapsed under its own gravity to such an extent that it has become denser and the Planck density. I'll leave this rest of the text for you to read. So we have just created our own um, document summarizer, or explain like I'm 5 version of some input text, right? So this is how you can create your own examples. So there is nothing difficult when you are using this playground. All you have to do is come up with some smart prompts and given some sample responses that you would expect it to give you, right? And this way you can create your own examples and you can use them with Python. Now let's say I want to use this particular code in my application, code for this particular application. So what I would do is I would click on export code, right? And this would give me the copy of all those things, all these parameters. They would be exported in this snippet, and I can use it in my own code editor to generate some more text. We have seen that when you create an example in the playground, you can export the corresponding code from Python, right? So this is the code which is generated over here. I have made certain modifications to this code and also the prompt. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to create some business ideas that combine NLP, psychology, and video games. So the way I have written this script is as follows. I have written my API key inside this config.py file which I'm importing. OpenAI package is installed and wrapped these settings inside this function. This particular function takes in my prompt and it would generate the output from the API key, so from GPT-3 API, right? And I would then print out the contents of it. So I would run the script and let's see what the output looks like. So a game that teaches people how to be more persuasive, a game that teaches people to be more confident, a game that teaches people how to be more charismatic, a game that teaches people how to be more influential. These are all related to psychology, right? And these are pretty interesting ideas. It does not give you the details, but it definitely gives you some direction to think into. So this particular example deals with the second offering of the GPT-3 API, which is called search, right? So let's say we have some data and we will ask some questions to the API and see if it answers it correctly or not. So the way to do this is you have to have your data in this particular format. This is JSON lines format, right? So you have a text tag which will contain your data and some metadata that identifies this particular text. So if you take a look at this particular snippet or this particular block, this data is about Google, so I've given the metadata Google, and this second text is about Amazon, so I have annotated it with Amazon, right? Now, so what I'll do is, first of all, this particular file, it needs to be uploaded to the server of GPT-3 API. So I'll run the script and I'll get some response in return, right? It's uploading. This ID is of importance to us because we'll pass in this identifier to our Q&A section, and it is this section which we can query and get answers from the API, right? So my first question is very simple: when was Google founded? Right, so we'll take a look at what the answer should be. Google was founded in 1998. Okay, I'll save the script and I'll run this. Yeah, all this code, it can be found from the documentation. Yeah. So yeah, so this was the JSON response that we have received, and the answer is 1998. Now let us ask some different question. So what was the name of Google headquarters? Okay, I'll save this and run this file. Okay, the answer is Googleplex. Now let us verify it from our data. Where is it? Oh, yeah. So Google moved its headquarters in California and nicknamed it to Googleplex. Okay, this works well. Now we'll ask something for Amazon. So there is this question that is quite spread out. So Amazon is an American multinational company. Okay, it is one of the big five companies in the US in IT industry, along with Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Facebook. So these are four companies, and Amazon is five, right? So this becomes quite tricky for the API to figure out. Let's see how it responds to our question. What are the top five IT companies in the United States, right? So yeah, instead of information technology, I have given IT. Instead of text FIVE, I have given the digit, and instead of United States, it's just US. Let's see if our API can give us the right results. Yeah, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Facebook. So yes, it does answer as expected. So in this section, we saw how you can upload your own data and ask the API to do the search and return the results to us.